Hi everyone, this is Aaron for Zollotech, and we're going to compare the iPhone 4S to the Nokia Lumia 900. Both of these phones are the latest and greatest that run their own operating systems, which is Windows Phone 7.5 Mango on the Lumia 900 and iOS 5. Both of them should be updated fairly soon, but we don't know what those updates are yet. Let's talk about specs. Now, specs in both are pretty good. Neither of them seem to lag or anything, but let's talk about the actual numbers. In the iPhone 4S, we have a dual-core A5 processor. Apple doesn't really specify what the actual speed of it is, but most people think 800 to 900 megahertz per core. In the Lumia 900, we have a 1.4 gigahertz single-core processor. Like I said, both are plenty fast. You really don't see a slowdown more so on either or. It doesn't really matter as far as that goes. Both of these phones have 512 megabytes of RAM used for the system or the CPU, and then we have storage options. On the iPhone 4S, we have a 16, 32, or 64 gigabyte option. On the Lumia 900, we have 16 gigabytes internal storage. Neither phone is upgradable. When it comes to the screen, the iPhone 4S has a higher resolution screen but smaller screen. So we have a 3.5 inch screen, and you can see the Lumia 900 is much larger with a 4.3 inch screen. As far as resolution is concerned, though, we have on the iPhone 4S a 640 by 960 pixel. That means we have 330 pixels per inch, which is quite a lot, and you really can't see the pixels, as Apple calls it, a retina display. On the Lumia 900, that's one of the drawbacks of the current version of Windows Phone. We don't have any higher resolution than 800 by 480. So no matter what the screen size, you get the same resolution, which makes everything larger, but not quite as dense. So that means 480 by 800 is 217 pixels per inch. So you really have a nicer display as far as the clarity and text on the iPhone 4S. But overall, they both have great screens. The Lumia just recently won Best Phone in Daylight, so it's really good. It's an AMOLED screen with what they call True Black, and it looks really nice as opposed to some other phones with AMOLED screens. It works great in daylight, and the iPhone 4S actually fell behind it as far as that goes. Now, as far as the cameras go, we both have 8 megapixel cameras, but the iPhone 4S records 1080p, where the Lumia 900 only records 720p. And that's not a result of the camera itself, that's a limitation of the operating system. So Microsoft really needs to change that, and probably will in the upcoming Tango or Apollo updates whenever those release. Both of the phones have Bluetooth. They have Wi-Fi, BGN. They're both very comparable that way, but the Lumia 900 supports LTE, where the iPhone 4S supports GSM worldwide, Verizon, Sprint, all sorts of different carriers, but we don't have LTE speeds, which means this is the first AT&T LTE phone, which really makes a difference if you have it in your area. Fortunately, I don't, but if you do, you can get some really fast speeds. Very impressive, but I couldn't tell you from my own experience just because we don't have that here locally. Now, both phones have been touted for their design. The iPhone 4S feels very good in the hand, is nice and glass, feels premium, is weighted nicely, does have some durability issues because it's glass on both sides, and while I have not cracked any of these, I do know of people that have. And the glass is pretty durable. It's supposed to be Gorilla Glass, Corning Gorilla Glass on both phones, but they don't really mention that. Apple doesn't really tout that or mention that. However, that is their supplier from their supplier list, so we can only assume it's Gorilla Glass or some alternate source that they've done themselves. We don't really know, as they won't really say for sure. However, the front and back both are glass. A lot of people have scratch issues with them for whatever reason, more so than normal Corning Gorilla Glass, so there may be some difference there, but overall the phone feels really good. This metal band is nice, but does cause antenna issues that we'll talk about in a moment. Now, as far as the Nokia Lumia 900, it's a really nice phone. It's a polycarbonate body and feels really good in the hand. It is much larger, but these rounded edges really just, it feels as premium as the iPhone 4S. It doesn't feel like a cheap phone, with the exception of some of the buttons. They rattle a little bit when the thing vibrates. As far as the back goes, though, we do have some durability issues with this little chrome piece here that surrounds the camera. It's got a bunch of scratches right here, and that right there is a whole lot of scratches, and that's the high point of the back of the phone, and just seems to scratch anytime you lay it down. Now, if you have a case or a skin on it, that's not going to be a problem, but it is something to note as far as durability goes. Now, when it comes to the screen, like I said, both supposedly have Corning Gorilla Glass. However, the Lumia 900 does not appear to have an oleophobic coating or an oil-repelling coating. And what that means is when you're using the phone and you put your fingers on the phone, the iPhone 4S seems to not show as many fingerprints as you use it, whereas the Lumia 900 shows a lot of fingerprints. I've had issues with that from the get-go. I've noticed that the screen feels a little different, seems to have more resistance, and these are little things, and most people are going to use a screen protector and not notice that. However, if you're using just the glass, there is a resistance difference between the two. This just doesn't feel as smooth and shows a lot more fingerprints. Now, as far as the overall usability, this is obviously iOS, and this is Windows Phone 7. Both of them are very nice operating systems. This one is more efficient, I want to say, as far as how you access things such as feeds. Not really going to go into the operating system themselves. I've done a lot of different reviews and comparisons on that before, so if you want to see that, check out those videos. However, if you know which operating system you like and you're trying to determine the phone, the Lumia 900 is my obvious favorite. However, responsiveness of the screen seems to be a little bit lacking at times. The responsiveness of the iPhone 4S is fantastic. The screen size is obviously a little bit smaller, but the actual response of your finger on the screen seems to be a little bit smoother on the 4S than it does on the Lumia. Your finger just doesn't seem to respond as well, and I don't know if that's due to software update or whatever they're using, but for some reason sometimes on the 900 I've seen where my finger just doesn't seem to respond. You can see it's moving a little bit, and it's hard to show that, but I do seem to notice a slight difference. But when it comes to things like the keyboard, I prefer the keyboard of the Lumia 900. When it comes to the keyboard of the iPhone 4S, while it's good, I just seem to like the Windows Phone 7 keyboard for whatever reason. The cameras on the iPhone 4S and the Lumia 900 are quite nice, but let's talk about the forward-facing camera first. On the Lumia 900, we have a forward-facing camera that seems to do a pretty good job. Is not really meant for anything other than video calls, but it will do a decent job when it comes to wanting to maybe take a quick picture of yourself. It's a 1.3 megapixel VGA at 30 frames per second camera. The iPhone 4S is similarly spec'd and is a VGA camera, basically made for phone calls when you're using FaceTime. Both have the ability to make phone calls that way, and both seem to work really well as far as the forward-facing camera goes. But when it comes to the rear-facing camera, we have a big difference between the two. The rear-facing camera on the Lumia 900 is, while it's good in 8 megapixels, and we have, you can see this camera here, sometimes we have a little tinge in the middle. I don't know what that is. There's a pink tinge in the middle of this camera. I know some people have had that, some haven't. I'm not sure what it is. I know others have reviewed that and said the same thing. But let me go ahead and switch over here and show you what the cameras are like as far as pictures are concerned, and what they're like when they're taking video in motion. You can see some stability. Both cameras, like I mentioned, are both pretty good, but the iPhone 4S appears to be a little bit nicer, but I'll let you judge for yourself. And here's the full pictures, at least in this resolution of 1080p. Go ahead and take a look at those and see what you think. Aside from the cameras being a major concern on phones these days, one of the other major concerns on Windows Phone 7 anyway is the amount of apps. Now, apps are pretty plentiful on both phones. On iOS, we have the most amount of apps. hundreds of thousands, where on Windows Phone 7 we currently have just under 100,000 and about 80 to 90,000 apps. So they're doing pretty well, and I did a video recently that showed the top 10 apps on iOS based on amount of downloads and data used, and did a little test to see if we could find those on Android and Windows Phone 7. 99% of those apps, or 9 out of 10 rather, you will find on Windows Phone 7. You may not find the exact examples, such as Instagram. Here we have you have Instacam on Windows Phone 7. However, they do the same thing, and they actually function the same way. So even though you may not have the exact named app, you will find a comparable app. And apps are growing every day when it comes to Windows Phone 7. So the obvious winner right now here is iOS as far as apps are concerned, but in the future, that may not be the case. There's tons of apps on Windows Phone 7, and they just keep growing. One of the other major concerns is obviously battery life. Battery life on both phones is good. The iPhone, in my case, seems to get better battery life. I've used both phones extensively for about a week at a time each, and compared battery life. The iPhone has a lithium polymer 1432 milliamp hour battery, which is supposedly good for 200 hours of standby, 14 hours of talk time, 40 hours of music playback. On the Lumia 900, when it comes to the actual battery, we have an 1838 milliamp hour battery, but we do have a bigger screen to power, and that supposedly gives it 300 hours of standby and 7 hours of talk time and 60 hours of music playback. However, with my phone set up identically when it comes to email and things like that, I actually get less battery life on the Lumia 900. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe I need to give it some more time, but that's after using it for a week or so. I actually get about a day and a half on my iPhone, where I get just under a day and find myself having to charge the Lumia 900. So I'm not really sure what the difference is there. I don't know if I just need to give it some more time, but in my case, I seem to get better battery life on the iPhone. I definitely know that in some cases, people are saying they're getting amazing battery life in the Lumia 900, but from my own experience, that's what I've seen. Now, as far as phone calls, since these are phones, phone calls are really nice on the Lumia 900. The Lumia 900 has the best quality calls I've made on a phone in many years, and probably the best of all time, in my opinion. I never dropped a single call. I never had any problems as far as reception, as long as I was in an area with coverage, which in my case is 99.9% of the time. I've really had no issues whatsoever when it comes to call quality. On the iPhone, I have had calls drop at times, but not like most people are reporting or have reported in the past. I seem to have decent signal. I actually get a little bit better signal on the Lumia. That's probably due to the polycarbonate battery, or case rather, and overall is just a really good experience when it comes to making calls. Both of them are great phones, and I really urge you to get your hands on both before making that decision and trying out iOS and trying out Windows Phone 7 to see what will work for you. Windows Phone 7 is more efficient, is more social right up front. You're not in and out of apps to do the same thing. For example, Facebook and Twitter can be found under the People Hub and LinkedIn, and other things will be coming soon, I would assume, to that. As far as the iPhone goes, you're in an app to see Facebook, you're out of an app to see Twitter, and then to another app. Both of them, and there are apps like Flipboard that combine the two, but basically you're in apps and out of apps, where on Windows Phone 7 it seems to be more upfront. However, some people don't like the interface, other people do. So like I said, I really urge you to get your hands on one, try it out for yourself, and go from there. If you have any other questions you'd like to hear answered regarding either phone, please go ahead and comment below. I'd like to hear what you have to say on that. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.